All right, let's call tonight's meeting to order. This is Kelly. Roll call, please.
Austin.
Here.
Illingworth.
Here.
Kimbrell. Here. Patterson.
Here.
Resterholz.
Here. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and I'd like to ask retired Colonel Dan Williams to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
America, we love you.
Now, if you'd stand just for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I see I have made a mistake already. We have a second grader here this evening, a very special second grader. Well, hello there. I am so sorry. And which school do you go to?
Gateway.
At Gateway. And are you ready? Can you do the Pledge of Allegiance for us this evening? You're all ready to do it? All right, well, let's stand and we're going to say it again because we live in a country that is worth it, isn't it? Okay. Why don't you come right up over here to the microphone at the end, Mike?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Now that's something I don't mind doing twice. All right, next on the agenda, we have the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Austin.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Resterholz.
Aye. Next on our agenda, we have the district and community spotlight. And our wonderful principal from Summit Elementary who received a brand new flag this morning.
Yes, I did.
That was
It's
a,
not just my flag sticker. But thank you to the American Legion who presented Summit with a new flag this morning, and I know they're going around to the elementary schools to present all of our schools with new flags. It's a wonderful tradition, and we're honored to be a part of that.
it was so good to see all those kids outside this morning and gathered around the flagpole. And it just, if that doesn't give you goosebumps, nothing will. So,
It's
all right.
true.
Thank
Proud
you.
of our kids. I was very proud of our community. It's a great event to be a part of. So thank you so much for having me. I'm Katie Rexford. It's an honor and a privilege to be the principal over at Summit Elementary. And I feel humbled to be asked to come up and be part of a spotlight. And I don't even like the term spotlight because it feels like it's focused right here. And while I was asked to speak about E3, which is Elevate Your Environmental Education, and Miss Tina Cusson said, well, about 5 minutes on E3. Do you think you can do it? It's like, I don't know if I can pare it down that much, but I will certainly do my best to give you an overview of what we do. And to do the program justice, and knowing that I only have about 5 minutes, I figured the best way to start is back when my third grader was about a month old. So I was coming back from maternity leave, and we reconvened as a leadership team up at Breckenridge to talk about the formation of our school year and what we were going to do. What is our focus? What is our drive? What are we going to be working on to help gear our students towards success? One conversation that we had, that I had the opportunity to be a part of, was talking about Catamount Institute and our partnership with this wonderful entity. We had already developed a collaborative relationship with Catamount Institute through their work with Columbine Elementary at that time. And we said, how can we do this more? Let's come together and figure out ways to bolster this relationship, this partnership, and let's figure out ways to keep kids engaged and achieving in all their academic areas. One thing that we focused on was knowing kids who experience learning in the great outdoors. When learning becomes tangible and real, then learning becomes their own and they grow because of it. Catamount is an expert at making learning come alive in our natural environment. And we're already so blessed and fortunate to have this wonderful world around us just in our backyard. And you go, how are we not accessing that with our kids each and every day? So as we talked about how to form that as a leadership group, we said, well, first and foremost, it has to enhance the learning of our kids. We cannot have a learning opportunity that's pulling them out of the classroom and not bolstering their learning. So we've got to make sure that this is going to be a robust and meaningful experience, because our teachers won't be game to have kids missing reading, writing, math, so they can go just play outside. And it's like, oh, we're not just going to play outside. But kids are going to be so engaged that they're not going to know that they're not playing outside. They're going to think, we're going on hikes, we're exploring, I'm collecting this data, which happens to be science, and I'm going to do this research, which happens to be science and reading and writing, and I'm going to do all this math and calculation work, which it ties right into our learning in the classroom, that they're going to be excited to bring that back into their learning environment at school. So as we sat down, it's like, all right, we know that kids are going to learn better when they're outside and engaged. How are we going to maximize this for teachers? Initially, our thought was this is going to be an opportunity for teachers to have a collaborative time to work together. We're going to allow students to peel off, work with the experts at Catamount, and our teachers are going to hold together and do some PLC work, which is our professional learning community work, and really grow our practice. That's what we thought when we were sitting around the round table, when we brought it to our staff. Our staff said, absolutely not. Learning happens best when kids have an experience and we're able to thread that into everything that we are doing throughout the day. I want to reuse that vocabulary. I want to go back and talk about grasshoppers that we've dissected. I want to say the word "yerk" just again so kids can hear it and really infuse it into what they're doing. There's no way I can let the experts say, we're the experts all day, every day. We're going to. I know you wanted to give us time to plan, and thank you for that. But we want to be out there with our kids, and we want to be engaged in that learning with them. That's part of why E3 has become so powerful, because it's been unifying for not just our students, but for our staff and our students, because they're bolstering their learning in reading, writing, math, science, and they're building that community network as that learning is congealed all day, every day, and we're reusing those big, robust science words in our everyday classroom, because the teachers know what they're focused on when they're out doing those field experiences. And I use the word field experience because it's not just a field trip. Kids think about field trips and it's like, awesome, I'm getting on a bus and I'm not going to school for a day. It's like, no, this is a field experience. We are taking our learning and we're doing something so exceptional that you need to become a professional student. You're a professional learner out in the field. You have a task at hand that must be accomplished, and we're going to make sure that you accomplish that when you're with the Catamount experts and you're back here in the classroom with your teachers. So we have these field experiences woven in to our school year. So that was the antithesis, the part that started, and it was like, oh, yes, we're going to make this great. And I bring that up because it's important to note that when we are making meaningful experiences for our kids, E3 is important. And when we're seeking to bolster our relationships with community members and our community organizations that offer so much to our kids, E3 is born. The people who are sitting around that table with me aren't sitting in their current positions anymore. Ms. Wolken has retired. We have a new principal at Columbine. Dr. Bowman is gone and we've seen a few different iterations in the superintendent seat since then. It's not a person-dependent program. Just like the programs we built here in Woodland Park School District. It's bigger than that. It's a philosophy. It's how do we give our kids engaging, robust, meaningful experiences that are gonna make learning come alive for them? And how do we continue tapping in to the expertise that we have around the table so that way we can keep getting better? E3 has evolved many times. My third grader, who was 1 month old at the time, I knew that we were building E3 for her, even though she was only a month old. And even though I was really focused on the 5-year-olds and the 6-year-olds and the 7, 8, and 9-year-olds that I had currently in my building, I knew this program wasn't going to be a one-hit wonder, because that's not what we seek to build. We seek to build things that are going to evolve and grow with the needs of our kids, the needs of our community, and we're going to continue to adapt so we can get better. E3, I'm proud to say, has been different a little bit every year, and different in a better way. So as we started it, it was like every kid's going, Aspen Valley Ranch, fantastic. So we carve time out of our day, send our kids to Aspen Valley Ranch. We do work with the Catamount Institute folks. We go through very robust and purposeful lessons with our students, and we've continued to change that. We said, K1, let's see what learning we have in our backyard. Our schools are situated in a location where we have a whole lot of environment to dig into, even up in Divide. And it's like, yes, we study the wind. That's part of our yes. But beyond that, we want our kids to how can I have a meaningful lesson where I'm digging into observations and analysis, and I'm taking what's my hypothesis? What do you think is going to happen? And our kindergartners are doing that, and they have more frequent lessons that are a little bit shorter because they are. And so we want to make sure that the lessons adapt to them. Then our 2nd through 5th graders, they travel to Aspen Valley Ranch, but as we've talked to the experts at Catamount and they've met with us as principals, what else do we need? It's let's grow it. Our kids do Aspen Valley Ranch and they know it and they love it. What else do we have? Well, we have Mueller State Park. We have the fluorescent fossil beds. We have Manitou Lake. Let's go there. So we do learning that builds on itself, and then our kids take it to a bigger experiential learning opportunity where they're then taking soil samples, water samples. They're looking for animals in their natural habitat. The most fascinating part of every lesson is animal scat. That never gets old. And looking to find where it is and how it's a part of our community in our backyard. And that makes the lessons engaging and robust. And as the experience evolves from kindergarten through 5th grade, I can guarantee you that our kids are excited each and every year. Oh, when's E3? I know we're going to go. I know it's going to be something fantastic. And then they continue the program into the middle school. And I'll say, I'm not an expert in the middle school structure and routine. What I can say, though, is our kids come from the elementary buildings prepared to be scientists as they move into the middle school and make the most of that continued experience. One thing I've heard frequently and it's every single year, Catamount reports best students ever. They took that program that we started 9 years ago, and it's grown and evolved, and they've replicated it in other schools, in other districts after starting it here. And as they continue to evolve it here, they go, you know what? The Woodland Park School District students, they do it better. Wow, how do you guys do that? You go, because it's part of what we do. It's part of who we are. Our kids are excited to work with these professionals and learn new things and then implement those new things and then reuse those new things as they grow as learners year to year. So they are there and excited to be present at Aspen Valley Ranch or the Fossil Beds or the Summit Backyard because they're fully engaged. And what's exciting is Catamount looks to us to say, how do we keep adjusting? How do we keep challenging our kids? How do we make this better? And so I'm excited about where we've gone in the last few years. I'm excited for where we're going to continue to go with it. And while E3 is one of those fabulous experiences that our kids have year after year, it's just an example, not of innovative programs, but innovative philosophy and innovative practice. Because it's a shining example of how we make good ideas better together. And so thank you for making E3 possible. Thank you for continuing to have it in our schools. And thank you for continuing to have the forward thinking and the momentum to go, all right, let's keep making it better. Let's give more to our kids. So questions about E3?
Mrs. Rexford, that was great presentation, and you've convinced me that maybe we should look into an outdoor focused track for kids. We offer all these wonderful courses, make available to them, but is that something that would be, that from your experience with the kids, would that be something people would be interested in?
I would say yes, barring winter, which tends to be October through June.
That's part of our.
But I think that drives to, we recognize that students learn better when they're engaged, and they engage in different ways. And we know that our kids in particular, and I would imagine if I spent more time like this, parents would go like, yep, my kids are definitely more engaged when they're outside. True. We work really hard to incorporate those ideals throughout our school day. We have outdoor learning spaces at all of our schools. And so teachers are encouraged, and usually we have to like, okay, sign up sheet because too many people want to do it. And it's, let's go out to our stumps and let's do our reading group outside. Let's go out to our picnic tables. We're going to do our writing journals, and we're going to take it to a tree, and we're going to be outdoors for that learning. And so I would say, let's keep dreaming. And we're incorporating those things now. And the more we do it, the stronger we're going to be. So I don't disagree.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mrs. Rexford? All right. Well,
Well, I do have a comment. I've actually been hiking, and I don't know if it was your kids or the Summit kids or district kids, but I was at Mule Creek and I was hiking and had them out, and kids were there, and they left the place cleaner than what it was before. Like, I've been hiking and they cleaned up all the debris, the rocks, it was great. So they left it better than it was before. So thank you.
On behalf of them, I say you're welcome. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was our kids.
I suspect it was.
Because our kids very much so care about our community, and that's part of what they learn. And they leave it better than they found it. And that goes back to the comments and compliments that we get from Catamount Institute quite regularly, is that our kiddos are prepared to be engaged in their learning, and they seek to be fully immersed in it, and they own it. And that's part of them owning it. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Okay, I noticed that there's some elected servants in our audience tonight, and I want to welcome all of you to be here. Thank you for being from the city, retired ones from the city, and our county commissioners, thank you. Our county coroner, of course, is here this evening as well. Thank you for being here. The next thing we have on our agenda is public comment. We have some guidelines for that I'd like to read. Please be aware that any personnel or individual student matters are considered confidential under Colorado law. And it is out of respect for the law and our employees and students that we require those discussions to take place privately in an executive session. It is requested that individual comments be limited to 5 minutes or a total of 20 minutes for any particular topic. The intent of public comment is to give the Board of Education the opportunity to hear your comments. However, the board will make no decision nor take any action on public comment during the meeting. So with that, Mrs. Casson.
We have 5 people signed up for public comment, so we'll start with Paul Sonier, followed by
Paul Sonier.
Sonier, thank you, followed by Jamison Dion, Dan Williams, Eric Stone, and Bob Campbell.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I just came here to say I appreciate each and every one of you. And you are all important. What I've just heard, I think, fantastic little giggling from the audience. And Dave, you're entitled to make a mistake. And you corrected it so gracefully. You understand, and I'm sure everyone at the table understands, that from what you may think is the most important person in the audience to the least important person in the audience, everyone is very important. You have a right to have a meeting with an agenda and decorum in the meeting. Now that we're through the minutia, I pray wisdom for each and every one of you and success. These children and these parents are your obligation and responsibility. The children are entitled to a future that they can be involved in, work in, and prepared to go out into. So with that, I just wanted to come and show my support and thank each and every one of us. And I wish you a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sonier.
Jamison Dion?
So I'm going to keep this very brief, just in the interest of everybody's time tonight. But I wanted to start out by thanking a couple members of the administration, Ms. Cassens and Ms. Hamlow. So many of the folks in the administration know that I have a Cora addiction or problem, depending on how you want to look at it. And I recently requested some of the information from one of our courses. And not only did the administration respond, but actually offered me some of their time to go through and kind of explore some of the content that was in Summit. So I really appreciate that. It really demonstrates a desire to present a more transparent system to the community members and parents. And I really appreciate it. So thank you. I also want to say thank you to the school board. I'm sure most of us are very relieved that we're moving forward. And just wanted to wish you the best in tackling all of the work that's ahead of you that the voters have asked for. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your volunteer work, and we appreciate you. And then to teachers and administration, thank you for all of your efforts in making the beginning of this school year a success. I'd like to offer my congratulations to the children and families of merit for the first time who have a purpose-built facility to support their education. And I'd like to especially thank Miles. I hear just kind of out there that you took the majority of the, brunt, I guess we should say, of the frantic move of one facility into another. So just wanted to recognize you and say thank you on behalf of the community for making that happen. So thank you all and have a great school year.
Dan Williams?
Dan, I'm sure that Mr. Sonier was not talking about you as the least. I didn't want that, miscommunications.
So I'm Dan Williams. I'm a county commissioner for District 1, the current chair of the board of county commissioners. I'm here with Bob and Eric, and this is posted. We're here officially as commissioners tonight to say a few things. Nothing I'm going to say is an indictment. I'm happy to see us smiling. I'm happy to hear some laughter. Paul and Jameson, thank you for those comments. I'm here to ask for unity. This board was formed about 2 years ago. And as you know, we came in under a divisive election in 2020. I'll leave it at that. We came in the middle of COVID, where this county and this country and the city was divided. And we spent 2 years trying to rebuild this community. I think we're doing a pretty good job. You guys see it every day in the paper, whether it's the Florissant Fire Board, whether it's Cripple Creek. Tomorrow, we're going to put a new mayor in Victor, for example, and we watch this. There's a reason we were silent during the recall. That's an election. We're not going to interfere in an election. Now, do we get calls? I'm going to tell you a few calls I got. Again, this is from the heart. And remember, my theme is I'm asking for unity. So I've been a public servant my whole life. I was a war fighter for 30 years and went to war 5 times. You guys just came out of a war. Thousands of people rose up against this school board. They're not bad people. You're not bad people. In fact, I'm going to ask those people to give the school board, you guys, their full support now. War's over. We had a casualty of war. He's called Matthew Neal. I talked to Matthew on the way over. That's sad. He was a world-class superintendent. Again, not a judgment, not an indictment, but he's a friend of a lot of folks and spent his life serving students and teachers. To the honorable directors here, you are honorable and you've conducted yourself that way. Public service is tough. You know, so I spent my whole life doing it. I'm almost 60 years old now. I made plenty of mistakes along the way. But I'll tell you that wars end. And so on one side, you have you guys who won, and the other side, you have some really angry people that worked really hard to take you off your dais. You know who's in the middle? Our kids. They watched everything. You know, when you didn't see us at your school board meetings, I can tell you that Eric and Bob and I were watching it online. We also are pretty adept at social media, and so we watched some of the vitriol and all of that. And it's really easy to be that person, you know, again, no one in this room, but doing this, it's a lot harder to put on a jacket and come up here and face the music. So I would ask those that try to recall you to please support the board. They're doing their very best. They're not paid. Did they misstep? You know, they'll tell you if they did or not. I talked to Dave, had a nice conversation with Dave today, and thank you for being at Summit. And thank you, by the way, for allowing us to do that. We're giving flags tomorrow to Gateway and Merit, and also thank you to Kayla for the help the course gave us during the most recent 9/11 ceremony. But what I've learned with wars, and I was an Apache pilot, so I killed people. I destroyed things. I did that for 30 years. My last combat tour is Afghanistan. It is a lot harder to kill. It's a lot easier to kill. It's a lot easier to destroy and to tear down. It's really, really tough to rebuild after you've done that. I offer you 3 examples: Afghanistan today, Iraq, and the Ukraine. So the challenge that awaits you guys now that we want to be part of with you is to rebuild the relationships. And let me give you a couple examples. Even though we were silent for all the right reasons, I got a couple of calls. Eric got calls and Bob got calls. So I got a call one night from a proud parent of an LGBTQ son that's in the school. And they were watching some of the rhetoric. They weren't ugly. They certainly weren't ugly. They had been the board, but their concern was, wouldn't you rather have my son be able to tell his teacher that he's gay than me find him hanging in a closet? We had a good discussion. I got a call from another parent that said, I got the critical race theory thing. You know that's controversial, but I'm a person of color, and my child is a person of color. And I'm a little worried that they're going to be marginalized, and of course they're not. But that was the concern. I got calls from parents of athletes saying nobody's talking about athletic programs. Is there still going to be an athletic program in the school? Because they were looking at scholarships. I got calls from veteran parents. This is a county where 1 out of 4 men are veterans and 1 out of 9 women are veterans. We haven't had an ROTC or Service Academy scholarship presented to students from the school in over 5 years, nor do we have an ROTC program. So why do I say that? I don't say that as an indictment or criticism, but there's 4 or 5 examples of parents that watch the rhetoric on both sides. And as the board said, and you're doing what you were hired to do, what you said you do to listen to the parents, there's 5 different parental inputs. And I think they want to work with you. And that's what I would ask the folks that did try to recall these people. Please support them. Did we learn lessons? We sure did. We learned lessons. We all did. I think what this board and what the recall petition folks got caught up in is the same thing that Eric and Bob and I got caught up in. That's anger. That's a divided country. That's people that don't want to talk. Every day commissioners get called. And the calls we get is, I need you to solve X problem. Well, sir, have you tried talking to your neighbor? No, that's why I have a county commissioner. You can talk to me. That's a true story. We have people bringing guns to meetings right now and threatening people in this county. So we have to put deputies in those meetings. So I just say that, and I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the speakers, but I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate you hanging in there. Know that when the war is over, the anger still exists. There's still vitriol out there. I'd ask the folks that have keyboards to lay down your sabers and support these guys. Give them your ideas. The people that call me, call them. They'll work with you. To you guys, I know you're going to continue to listen and sort of lick your wounds, and we've got years to go. It may not be a surprise to you. I'm like Cassie. I'm waiting to find out what the scores are, but we're not leading the world right now in space. We're not leading the world right now on the oceans. We're not finding the cure to cancer or AIDS. And the people that are going to do that aren't the people in this room. It's that little boy that I actually stepped on. And so that's really all I'm asking you to do. Please, let's unify. We want to be with you to the extent that we can help you, that we can speak, that we can come to your programs. We believe in you. I believe in you. I have faith and confidence in this board. I have faith and confidence in both of the acting superintendents. I think that's what we're calling you. I miss Matthew, you know, and that was a decision you made, and I respect that. But he was a human being caught up in this. And just remember that our kids are watching. The kids watch this. In fact, early on, some of the kids weighed in on it. I think they came and talked to you guys. So I'm not embarrassed about that. If the kids are watching now, and I know we have members of the press here, we're all fallible. We've all fallen short, and we can ask their forgiveness, but we can learn and we can get it better. So God bless you guys, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
Eric Stone.
Good evening, members of the school board, directors. Really appreciate you guys. Again, Eric Stone, 112 West Valley Drive here in Woodland Park. And, you know, as I look around this room, I see a lot of faces of friends, and both on the board as well as, you know, here in the gallery here that are staff. Ms. Gannon, we raised our kids together here in this school district.
And we're still friends.
And we're still friends, even though she was assistant principal. Luckily, no issues. But, you know, Mr. Garrett, when our kids went to high school together, were in plays together, sang together. Ms. Cousins, our kids didn't go to school together, but they participated in music programs together. And I remember, I don't even remember how many years ago it was, but when Bill Brown, our kids were on stage together, and you know, your beautiful daughters, beautiful, brilliant daughters, I might add, are just achieving wonderful things out there in the world, all because of the school district, and not just because of the school district, though. You know, about maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago, maybe 10, I can't remember exactly how long. I remember the superintendent then, Jed, and some teachers and other people asked the question, why isn't the homecoming parade on Main Street? Why do we do the homecoming parade in the little loop in front of the high school? And the case was made is that we need to bring the schools to the community because we need the community in the schools.
Amen.
Schools are reflective of our community. Actually, schools are the core of our community. And that's because just like last Friday, you know, staff got together for an all school staff barbecue, and then, you know, headed up to the field for the first home football game. That's community. And, you know, the last part of the word community is unity. It's actually not part of the word root, but it's there. Schools bring communities together. And over the past very short period of time, it's been something which has divided the community. And, but it was a short period of time. And I really do believe, and I want to ask everyone out there, as Commissioner Williams said, as people, Paul Saunier very eloquently said, is to support this board, support these schools, support the kids, support the arts, support the sports, support all of the events. You know, when my kids came through school, the garden at Gateway was planted by Junior Master Gardeners that my kids were part of many years ago. From there, they went and took part in a new thing called Envirothon team at Woodland Park High School that went on to become the perennial state champion Envirothon teams, going across to international competitions. And despite the fact never having seen an elm tree in person, did exceptionally well against an international group of competitors who grew up with elm trees and maple trees and all these things they were required to identify that they had never seen before. But it was these partnerships with you know, Aspen Valley Ranch and with the Colorado State Forest Service and Mueller State Park that brought them in and actually got samples of, well, this is what the leaf, you know, of a maple tree looks like, or this is what the leaf of a tree that you've never seen in your lifetime looks like. You know, it's that sense of coming together and support and being a community that's really important. And, you know, somebody brought up sports and I brought up arts, and, you know, what's the value of arts education, for example? What's it, you know, as we look at curriculums and what's going to be important? I know a lot of people, and myself included, are, you know, really dedicated to the idea of classical education and, you know, and really, you know, focusing on, you know, the 3 R's and all of those things. But we can't lose sight of all those things which are important. The value of arts and education, well, for my family, $48,000. $48,000 was the total amount of music scholarships that my sons received at college. My youngest is now a senior. So that's $48,000 just in music scholarships. On top of that, roughly another $85,000 in academic scholarships. So add those two up, $120,000 academic and music scholarships that were available. Kids are looking for pathways to that next phase in life, whether it's college, whether it's trades, whether it's military. And it is this school district that's going to give them that opportunity. It's at this school district that's going to do that. I want to really strongly recommend just the administration, while I have the podium here, I'd love you to redouble your efforts in regards to leadership programs. My sons through this school participated in many leadership programs. Rotarians do a statewide leadership program. Rocky Mountain Youth Leadership Program is another one. There's
Kiwanis.
Kiwanis has one. I know that Boys State is another. Our counselors need to be seeking those out. My youngest son just got asked to come back and be the student-led director of the Rocky Mountain Youth Leadership Conference at the age of 21. They needed somebody who was going to be a leader. And that's what this school district is going to do. The next generation of leaders. So I just want to impress upon you, let's focus on the kids. Let's focus on the outcome. And the outcome is not going to be equal for every student. The outcome is going to be based upon what we put into them, what their families put into them, and then what they themselves put into their experience here in Woodland Park Schools. My kids started in kindergarten, went all the way through high school. Proud alumni of Woodland Park High School. And again, just want to ask everybody to support this board, support these schools, and come together because our kids deserve it. We deserve it. You guys deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Campbell?
Good evening, Bob Campbell, Teller County Commissioner. I want to talk to you about the positivity of serving. I've had the lucky and honor of serving this community for more than 20 years in a variety of different roles, including Treasurer's Office and Commissioner's Office. I realize you guys got a tough job serving the public. You have a 3-stool leg or a chair to sit on. It's not always easy on a 3-legged stool. You got to serve the voters that put you in these offices and sometimes can take you out of these offices. You got parents that are parents of the students. You got the students themselves, which is the focus, because you also have your family, your staff administrations that work for you. As a spouse of a teacher for more than 30 years in several different states, I understand staff and administration and leadership is important. Part of that comes with communication, showing them what you're trying to do. You can't always accomplish things in a minute. Sometimes it takes years to develop programs. Sometimes it takes years to change philosophy. But if you're positive, things work better. All the years I've served the public, I consider almost 99% of those days positive. Yeah, there's some tough days when you get taken out by complaints and staff members and constituents and stuff like that, but that's the tiny little part. It's a positivity of serving. And part of that process is everybody in this room, part of the state employees. We also had the student that was here. So it's a multi-layered zone. And you've got to be positive all the time. You accomplish so much with positivity as opposed to negativity. So I'd just like to say thank you. As the parent of 2 kids who went through this program, very successful adults now. They're both in their 30s, both have good careers, totally different kids. One completely opposite than the other, but they're successful because of experiences they've had at this school. But it was positive experiences. It was reinforcement at home. It was reinforcement by teachers and guidance counselors and all the curricular activities. My daughter was a queen of activities and was activity person of the year at the high school at one point. But it's all positive. And they take those life lessons with them everywhere they go, in the work environment, in their careers, in their own personal life. So positivity matters. And I'd just like to say thank you for serving, because along with quite a few of us in this audience, It's all about public service. I dedicate my life to public service. It's important. It makes our community, it makes our life of quality. And that's what I have to say tonight. So thank you so much for allowing us to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell. Any more? That is the end of our public comment. I want to thank all of you for participating in that. Our next thing on our agenda is our consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve it.
Second.
This is Kelly. Roll call, please.
Austin.
Yes.
Langworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Rusterholz.
Aye. Okay, we move on to number 7, information items. We'll start out with our Chief of Staff and Interim Superintendent, Mr. Del Garrett.
So after the public comment of all the positive and all, which I appreciate and agree with, I'm going to talk about COVID. So kind of a negative, potentially negative topic. So through the short straw on this one, what we're looking for is our discussion across the board, across some direction on where we want to go with our mitigation strategies and our ability to communicate that with our families and our staff correctly. So in your package, I believe you've got the 22-23 COVID protocol board information sheet. And this was just a little bit of the information that is out there that we kind of started with. I want to give a little bit of history. We all know that we at one point started with the schools closing down or coming back with masks. We had the mass quarantines. We had every school went through that. We kind of understood that piece. Last year, we also know that we had a much looser protocol, but it's still a protocol in place for masks as well as mass quarantining if needed. We also know that in I think it was late October that we changed that to not have those situations and really follow through with the at the time was what the recommendations were from our health department in terms of who gets quarantined, contact tracing, things like that. So we made it through that year, last year, to begin this year with questions about, again, what is our procedures or our policies around COVID mitigation, reporting, items like that. You can see that on August 29th, we did share with our staff some procedures about what that looked like for them in terms of following CDC guidelines and public health guidelines. And we also talked about how they relate those absences during that time to their our mandated need to provide pandemic relief leave, which is still in law under the Healthy Family Workplace Act. So that's the only communication that's been sent out formally from the school district is to our staff. Our students and families, when they have a positive case, have been communicated directly with our school nurses, and that's where we are. And so, just want to have a discussion about what do we want this to look like? What do we want to do moving forward for our staff and our students?
Directly in regard to the SARS coronavirus.
That is correct.
Do any of the directors have any questions for Mr. Garrett?
Del, here it says on the student portion, it says that this is shared with families that report positive cases to the school.
Correct, to the school nurse.
And I mean, the concern I have right off the bat is that anybody who reports a positive test to to our staff, that we're going to turn right around and share it with the Teller County Public Health and Environment. And that's not something we do with any other sort of medical information, right?
Actually, I'm gonna pass this around just so you can have it. This is our reporting requirements for all communicable diseases, so you get a chance to see that. But yes, there's a whole list, and it's going to be under Appendix A in there, of the requirements that we do have to report to our public health agencies.
Okay.
And as it gets around, I'll call a couple places to your attention.
Can I jump in and ask a
Yeah,
question?
please do.
When you said required to report,
Mhm.
can you tell me what the requirement is? Is it
Yeah.
a statute or what?
It is this, I don't even know the law numbers, but maybe Mr. Illingworth can help me with that. The 6 CCR 1009-1. That's the regulation, if I'm not mistaken. And if you look on page 2, under the regulation 2, reporting by individuals, it lists who does what individuals or what's defined as an individual. And you can see that persons in charge of schools, including school nursing staff, are the reporting individuals. If you take a look, the rest of that is a lot of it's about tuberculosis and things like that. You can just read through that if you would like. But if you notice where it says reporter P, that's the school in this particular case, school nurse, if that's what we're reporting to. In Appendix A, there is a list of, and that's at the very back of your packet there. Starting on page 10, there's an entire list of all of the different types of communicable or community diseases or illnesses that may be around. Talking about also on there is the requirement or the need for how long we have to report it and who the reporter is. So L in this case, if you're looking at that chart, L is a laboratory and P is a person. We would fall under the P, under the school nurse piece. And then if you look, so you can see, I mean, it starts with A and ends with Z and every disease in between, pretty much.
So you're saying this is a list of diseases that is required by statute to report to some entity.
Correct.
Are these diseases voted on by state legislature? I mean,
That's a good question.
or is it the opinion of some organization, health organization, that they should be on there? So
That
that's
is a
just a
great
question I have.
Yeah, and that's a great question. If you look on page 13, about halfway down, that's where you find the SARS coronavirus. And so it looks, you can see under there immediately. What does immediately mean? Well, when we have a case or an outbreak, we have 4 hours to report that. That's what immediately means. We don't, is there any Teller County Public Health people? We don't often hit that 4-hour mark because it's just school nurses tied up, but we do immediately. And you can see that the reporter is both any laboratory that does the test or any, and the P would be again us. And so that's the information about what has to get reported. And then the documentation in there about what does get reported to who.
Does anybody, I have a bunch of questions. Does anyone else have a question?
I know Tina was going to say something.
I just
Oh, yeah.
wanted to add, and you guys have it in your board packet on the next page, that part of our ESSER funding, so that's the federal funding. So part of our ESSER funding requires that we have a plan describing prevention and mitigation strategies. So part of the ESSER funding is responding to the pandemic. So as that, we have to have a plan that describes our response for mitigation and prevention, and that has to be updated every 6 months.
And that's specific to SARS.
Correct, because it's funding that comes as a result of the coronavirus.
And I think it's important to point out as well that when we're talking about the reports coming back to us, we're not mandating that somebody reports to us. We're not giving tests. It's even loosened up so much this year, and rightfully so, that there's not even contact tracing that occurs. It's when any of those diseases or illnesses that are listed get reported to us, then there's a reporting requirement that goes with that.
So if it gets reported to the school, then there's a requirement from the administration to follow statute in regard to that disease.
Yes.
So,
Correct.
so if John's son gets sick and they're on vacation and he tests positive for SARS, he does not have a legal requirement to report it to the school, or whether it's hepatitis or chickenpox.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, what I saw from the ESSER thing is that we apparently have to have a separate plan for COVID. It seems to be pretty flexible as to what
It is.
that plan is.
They give some guidelines as to, they say these are recommended,
Yeah.
but, yeah, we just have to have a plan.
And there's nothing in the law that requires us to force students or staff to tell us that they've had a
Nope.
positive COVID test.
Or in our current policies.
So we don't, just if they happen to voluntarily tell us that.
Phil, is this similar to the plan or Tina, last year, similar?
It's similar in how we finished up the year. Different in that there was contact tracing and quarantining involved with that last year and not in our current interpretation.
And who does that get reported to? For, let's just say for SARS.
So it would be reported to, my understanding is Teller County Public Health, who then takes the data and sends it to the State Department for their tracing. It's not State Department, it's State Health.
The health department.
Yeah.
Colorado Public Health.
Colorado Public Health Environment.
Is there a person's name attached to that report?
It is listed in there, and yes, that is the case.
The person that submits it?
No,
or-
the person who was sick.
Yes. But there's also agreements at the state level. I mean, there's agreements that data is only used at, I can't tell.
Privacy data.
Yeah, the privacy data, thank you.
If a parent or teacher wants to tell the school district, then, at least they'll know. And you sent this out in email, I believe, to all the staff. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so they'll know if they want to submit, but it's not mandatory.
Is this, do we have this posted on the website somewhere, Joe?
The current school guidelines are under
Yes.
the health tab in our website.
Okay. I think what I would want to sort of strengthen is that if people should know ahead of time, hey, if you report this to us, be advised that the Department of Public Health and Environment has said we have to turn over the following information to them essentially the same day, it sounds like. And so my concern would be like here where it says this is shared with families that report positive cases. It's like, but I would want people to know upfront what they're getting into in case they're concerned about, that information being shared, things like that. So I guess that's what I would ask is if we could kind of put that upfront, make sure nobody then has hard feelings about, whoa, I thought I was trusting you guys. I thought this was private and confidential. If they know ahead of time, then, I think we've done our part.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's part of the whole transparency thing and informing people of what the next steps are. And I think this is an important next step.
And I mean, I'll say, I don't think we should have to do that. But if this is what the regulation is and we're legally bound by it and we'll take an oath to follow the law, I've had to take it a couple times, then that's what it is. So whatever we can do to make sure people are aware of our legal requirements so that they can make informed decisions as part of that process, that's all well and good. So
I think that's good. I like that.
you feel comfortable?
To include maybe either a hyperlink or a reference to the 6 CCR
Yeah.
1009, because there's a long list of illnesses. It's not
Yeah.
specific to the coronavirus. So, yeah, I think that type of information is helpful for parents to know.
Yeah, like, and when.
For all of us to know, but the spirit of the law is related to, there's some suspicion perhaps about, the misuse of private information. I understand that, I get that. But the spirit of the law is to help safeguard communities from widespread illness. And so I think the given the spirit of the law, we don't necessarily want to hide or discourage the process. We just want to help people make informed decisions on what they're going to do. Because it might actually be the most prudent thing to actually report if there is, and it doesn't have to be specific to coronavirus, SARS. It could be any one of these things. And I think that's the spirit of the law. And I want to make sure that we're not inadvertently communicating that we want to encourage families to withhold information that might help safeguard a community as well. So both and.
I don't think where our intentions are to discourage families from that information, but I think it's the privacy of names getting out there is important. And so, but what would the process be if a parent calls and said, my student's going to be out for the next 10 days, you already have that information of what the student's name is. So how do you report that student's name, or do you have to get the parent's permission to correlate that into the system? How does that work? I mean, a parent's just not going to say, oh, my child's going to be out for 10 days.
So I think maybe there's two questions there. I'm not sure.
At least.
So the first part would be the who's going to be out for a certain amount of time. Yeah, we would have that information based on, just like any other illness. If I had the flu or strep throats are probably a really good example with little guys, right? They have the strep throat and we get the doctor's note that says they can't return to school until 24 hours after receiving antibiotics or whatever that may be. We do that. We do have that information. When we get the other information that's listed in those parts, our school nurses are the ones who upload that information, particular to whatever that is, chickenpox or whatever. It may not be that this, the health department comes in and goes, you have one case of chickenpox, we're shutting down the school from March to May. They're not going to do that. But what they may look at, chickenpox may be a bad example, but they may look at that and go, wow, 40% of our students now have chickenpox or bird flu or whatever it may be. We need to protect the community. And then they may make some recommendations for quarantine or closures or whatever, which that's a whole different, that's a recommendation. But the nurse has these requirements, these regulations they have to follow, that they upload into their system, and that goes to Teller County Public Health and then just distributed to the correct agency.
Right, because this is all coming from the Department of Health.
Correct.
Any other questions? Dave, we don't really have to do, Dave's idea of strengthening that to inform parents of the information, I mean, did you get that? Is that something that we want to do? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great piece that we can rebuild with communication, rebuild with the location of that communication. Definitely be willing to put that into writing or into a plan to submit for you folks, and then follow through with our communication.
No, and I like the idea of putting the link to this regulation, because we got the COVID protocol at a time. We didn't get this, and this is really useful, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time reading it after the meeting, and so I think it could be useful to anybody in the community who's got a concern as well, and so I wholeheartly second that.
Yeah, you guys had it.
The question is if we feel like we need a motion to adopt that.
Do we need do we need one?
It's not an action item.
It's information.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing, I guess what I would clarify the wishes of the board, that if you look at this first page, really things exist on our website, but I might recommend that we send a dialer out, a message out to parents that just lets them know everything that's under students here. Because what happens is parents are calling us because they're not sure what to do and they want to do the right thing. And so they call and say, oh, my student Dell has tested positive for COVID. And now all of a sudden, like, you've started the clock, you've started the process. So I think it would help our parents so that they have this information. If we could send a message out that just says, here are our protocols. If you have a positive test, all it says is, here are the CDC recommendations, isolate, and then reporting something that says the district is required to report positive cases that we're told about, we'll put it in better words, to Teller County Public Health as required by this with a hot link to it.
Yeah.
So I think it would help parents if we just sent, because they want to know that first part. And then we're informing them of the second parts. So letting them know that these are the CDC guidelines. And, if you call us, we will need to report that as required by this law.
I would like to see the reporting put right up at the top, very first thing. That if you call the school, just so you know, because some people think, oh, we have a positive test for chickenpox, measles, whatever it might be, that we have a duty to report that. And here is what the CDC is suggesting that you do if your child has measles. So I don't know if anybody gets it, but I've had it.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna help parents make an informed decision, because I know some of them are going to want to call and say, you guys need to know about
Well, they're
this.
like, what do I do?
Yeah.
That's why they're calling. They don't know what to do.
Right, but they also want to alert other people and things like that, make sure anybody else who's been exposed are at risk. So that lets them make an informed decision, if that's what you want to do, be advised, it doesn't stay with us, it's going to go to other sources. So, great.
So I think we can just push out a message to our parents, just letting them know, here are our protocols, which we've not done at this point, and then we can update our plan for ESSER.
And in that, you might want to put that, and by the way, click on the link on our website to see a full list of reportable diseases. I mean, does that seem reasonable or not?
Absolutely.
Is are you guys still doing the COVID, graph? Because I did click on that, like a few weeks ago, and I don't think it was even current, so.
No, we have stopped the dashboard.
The dashboard, yeah. Might be something, do we want to remove that and maybe substitute it for this?
Sure. Anything else? Any other discussion on this? I thought that was good. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
I have one more question. Is it the ESSER funds, does it come down from the state? Is it mandatory that you take the funds, or is it says if an LEA receives funds under the ARP ESSER, then they're required to develop a plan describing? But is it mandatory?
No, but you're talking millions of dollars. So, and we actually are spending those currently. So we're into it already. So we have accepted those funds and are spending them. I'll let you speak to that. Yeah.
So the ESSER funds just wouldn't be this, it's other.
It's all
incorporated.
It's all ESSER funds.
Right.
We had ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3. So we're now in kind of 2 and 3.
So this is just part of it?
Yes.
A portion of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we would write, this would serve as our plan. So we're meeting the intent of that. It just says, here's our mitigation strategies.
Okay.
Is there an ESSER 4?
No, I don't think so.
Because the ESSER, it was passed by Congress, right? Okay, and then it was actually accepted, I think, before any of us excluding Chris joined the board.
Yes.
That was already in motion and done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Any other discussion on this? Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Next, you have another presentation for
Yeah,
us.
I'm just going for a little bit.
Dell showed it.
It's Tina, Miss Casson said this is the Dell show.
They'll pay for it later.
I said it.
I know. No, it's okay, we just,
You guys got that?
yeah. All right, so every year we're trying to give an update on educator effectiveness. Last year we gave this presentation, I believe some of you were in the audience, but it was before there was actual elections, so I'll go through the full thing. Typically, by full thing, I'm not tracking like 2 hours worth of stuff, maybe 10 minutes worth of stuff. So we'll give the full outlook of it, what the changes were made this year with our committee, and then we'll talk about stuff that's coming up in the next school year, in particular with some law changes. I'm gonna preface that with a lot of the stuff that's coming up, CDE doesn't even know what it looks like yet. So if I say we're gonna trade in something, I can't even tell you what that is because we don't know yet. So, all right. So we don't need an agenda piece. So educator effectiveness, just as a brief overview, what is it? It's the evaluation system that was passed back with Senate Bill 10191. It's a framework for all teachers, principals, assistant principals, special service providers. Those are like counselors, social workers, school nurses that have specific requirements that go into evaluating them on a yearly basis. Okay? That is the essence of educator effectiveness. To give a little perspective, before this was passed, each school had their own evaluation system. Most of the time, at least the schools that I have been around, once a teacher or somebody hit what they call, back in the day, they called it tenure. I'm sure we've all heard that term, tenure. Once they hit that, a lot of times, teachers that were tenured, principals, whatever that may be, mostly teachers, might see an evaluation once every 3 years, something like that. And so the state said, you know what, it's every educator, whether you are tenured or not, is going to get an evaluation every single year. Just a point of clarification, we don't use the word tenure anymore. Tenure is not out there. We have probationary teachers and we have non-probationary teachers. We just like to use bigger words, that's all. It's almost the same thing. Okay, requirements, so they're basic requirements, and this is, you'll hear this going forward. This is the last school year with this particular breakdown. That's one of the major changes that's coming. So what is a requirement in the educator effectiveness? Well, so first of all, it's a two-part evaluation. Half of your evaluation are based on quality standards. Quality standards are defined in our case. That is one flexibility that the Senate bill gave us. The state does have a system where they define the standards, a quality standard of what makes a quality teacher. They have 4 different standards. We have to meet those, evaluate on those. State does have those, but in addition to that, as a local control piece, some local flexibility, we're allowed to create our own evaluation pieces as well. So in some cases, we have adopted the state model, the state standards, and in other cases, we added on to the state standards. That's kind of the laws that you have to at least meet the state standard, but you're allowed to do more. So some, for an example, we have a teacher librarian rubric, okay, and the state currently does not have that. So we created our own because that's how we wanted to make sure that we had the value. So we still had to petition this, did not petition the state. We had to write to the state. The state said, yeah, those look good, and we used those. So we have, I don't know, if you come to my office, I can tell you, probably have 20 different evaluation metrics or categories. So 50% comes on that. So that's based on observations. That's based on feedback, survey feedback. That's based on artifacts that teachers, principals, everybody can upload to show that they're meeting these quality standards. Okay. The other 50%, so that's over here, the other 50% comes from a measure of student learning or outcomes. The difference between the two usually lies on who's closest to the student impacting their education. So for example, a teacher, a math teacher would be measures of student learning. There's a measure of how they grew or how they had their students achieve during that school year. Outcomes are probably around some of your peripheral support services. So like in counseling, they don't have necessarily a direct impact like in teaching math, but in setting up all of the different things to make them have a safe learning environment or whatever those issues are, they would have some outcomes that would be measured. So in totality, between 50% quality standards, 50% measure of student learning, that is the evaluation every single year. The difference between non-probationary status and probationary status, again, let me harken back to days when we were all in school. Let me look around and make sure that's accurate. Yeah, sounds about right. When we had tenure versus, once we got to tenure, or let's put in the words non-probationary, then it was really, it was an act of Congress kind of to say, man, this teacher or this principal or this person, whatever maybe, isn't meeting standards, but they've got tenure, right? So we've all heard that before. So one of the changes that came about in this law, and to achieve tenure, it used to be that you had to just be at the district employed for 3 years. On your 4th year, you got non-probationary status. That's in general how that used to work. Now, you don't reach non-probationary status until you have 3 consecutive years of efficient or effective ratings on your overall evaluation. So in theory, probably not in practice, but in theory, a teacher could go through their entire career never getting non-probationary status, because you have to have 3 years of effective ratings in a row to get it. If you, let's say you go effective, and then something happened, you didn't get effective, you start the clock all over again. So you can see where maybe in theory you can go all the way through. In practice, probably not. Probably get to a point where you still come out and talk about that. Once you get to non-probationary status, what's changed is it's no longer just a property right. It's no longer just your piece. You can lose tenure or non-probationary status if you have 2 years in a row of less than effective ratings. And then you go start the clock all over again. So that's some of the major differences between yesteryear and what we live in today. Okay, so for 22-23, a couple of things that come about. Number one, school districts are required to implement MSLs. That's no different than the laws that previously was written. But remember, during this time of craziness over the last 3 years, the legislature made some changes. We bounced around from, no, we're not going to do any educator effectiveness ratings. Then we're going to do them, but there are no MSLs because nobody was in school, right? And so to fully implementing the system again. So again, 22-23, we have to have MSL. So MSL is short for the measure of student learning or outcomes. What's interesting about this is that this year, student growth from the Colorado Growth Model or our SPF may not be used in a collective measure of student learning. Lots of different reasons. They do have a growth model that's put out there. I find it interesting that they give us a growth model, they give us some growth data, and they say, oh, by the way, you can't use that in your evaluation, probably because it's not valid, I guess. Okay. So we can't use a student growth. So I can tell you, if you look, well, I'll get done in a minute. Effectiveness ratings will return to the 2 parts of 50% of quality standards. I wanted to point out a couple of things here. This is some of the work that the committee did last year. Standard 1, where it says it's 25%. So remember, there's 4 standards in a teacher rubric. And what it used to be is it used to be percentage or weighted based on the number of elements that were in that particular standard. So the ones in parentheses is what it was last year. The ones that are listed next to the parentheses are what the committee changed it to. So you can see last year, standard 1 based on weighting of the number of elements was at 20%. The committee came back and said, no, we're gonna make that 25% and so on. So standard two is at 30%, 25%, and 20%. And the reason for that work, the committee met together and said, we need to align the weighting of our standards to meet what is really valued and stated in our mission statement and our beliefs, versus just haphazardly weighting them as a number of elements in the standard. Because you might have a standard, I don't know which one it would be, that's up to each individual perception. You might have a standard that has 20 elements, but really none of them are as impactful as you think. Maybe standard 3 has 4 elements. So we wanted to align more closely to the value system. Going back to the measure of student learning, remember I said that the Colorado growth model couldn't be used, or SPF. So we do have some collective measures that we've agreed to this year, so you can kind of see what that looks like. Our collective measures, our high school will be using SAT data and the SAT suite. And so that will be their MSL. The middle school will be using our MAP achievement, so that's the beginning to end. They're going to be using achievement for reading and math. So they're going to look at their score for their effectiveness rating, measure student learning based on achievement and maps. At elementary, is looking at the achievement in our new program, iReady, and they're going to focus on reading. So that's the collective measure of MSLs. MSLs have 2 parts. A collective, in other words, a school-wide, it could be 2 teachers. It could be a whole school, it could be a department, whatever is defined as collective by that school is 10% of your total MSL scores. No, if you go back to the pie, and if you're like me, you wait, what's 10% of 50% of the, so just think of taking the MSLs off to the side, creating its own pie, only 10% of that is going to be a collective measure. In other words, what did we do collectively to impact achievement and growth of this particular subset of students? Okay. The other part of the MSL is going to be an individual MSL. That's 80% of that remaining of that pie, and that is directly the individual teacher setting up metrics for how they are making growth or achievement with those subsets of students that are only them impacted.
Could you say that one more time? I don't think I quite understood what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So two pieces of the MSL, measure of student learning. So we're gonna measure how a school's doing, and how a teacher's doing on our measure of student learning in 2 ways. Okay, the first way, which is a very small slice of the measure of student learning, is what we do collectively. That's why the high school has chosen SAT, because everybody that's in the building has some impact on an SAT score. So I might not see little Davy Resterholz. I don't know if you ever went by Davy when you were a kid, but that's what.
Keep going, go ahead.
So that piece is, I may not see that, but I have an impact on that score collectively. So we're gonna get a little bit of our score based on everybody's results in a collective measure. If I do have a class, say Algebra 1, I might write a MSL that talks about the class that I in particular teach. The PE teacher doesn't do it, the English teacher doesn't do it, only I have the Algebra 1 class. That's the other part of the MSL. So we get the big score, collective, and then we get a bigger piece of the pie owned by our individual teachers.
Understood, thank you.
Is the audience allowed to ask questions?
I can't, somebody said something?
Khursheed wants to, if there's questions.
I think I would love to be able to take questions from the floor, but are you available to answer questions if anybody has any at some other time, Del? All right. And how would people contact you if they had questions concerning this?
They could email me, set up a meeting, call me, probably see me at the grocery store or something like that. Out at Summit, I'll learn that there.
Oh, yes, I am.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Beg to differ.
So what's next in 22, 23? So, so teachers and special service providers are going to identify their metrics. Again, I did not identify those pieces. all metrics have to be reviewed and approved by building principals. So a teacher that sets their own MSL is still going to be reviewed and accepted and approved by their building administrator. So I can't go, well, I guess I could if it was approved, but a bad example of an MSL is if I'm a shop teacher, right? And a wood shop. And I have a freshman class who they've never taken any wood shop ever in their lives. So I give them a pre-test of what do you know about hand tools? And at the end, I go, what do you know about hand tools? Well, they're naturally going to grow because they've never done anything, right? So that's not really any contribute to me. So that's why our principals have to review them. That's why our principals have to sign off on them. And our teachers don't do that. It's just, that was an example. Probationary staff have 2 formal observations and post-observation conferences within the school year. So remember the 3 probationary years before you become non-probationary. First year probationary teachers, you're going to see on there, their observations have to be done by October 7th. I know all of our principals have those calendared and ready to roll. And then they have to have their second one by March 3rd. That consists of a full class observation, meeting the goals and the purpose of that building, as well as meeting their metrics on our quality standards. They're going to observe that full piece. In addition, they're going to get a pre-conference to say, what should I be seeing? And then they're going to get a post-conference going, this is what I saw. Here's what I can work on. Here's what you did great, that kind of stuff. Non-probationary staff, they have 1 formal observation and a post-op conference done by May 1st. Mid-year review conferences, everybody has a review on their goals and on their metrics by January. We teach and we emphasize that this is a great time to be reflective on individual growth and goal progress. One thing we don't want to do is get to the end of the year and be surprised by our evaluation. We don't want to be surprised by where our students are. We don't want to be surprised by any of that. So we have very reflective meetings and conferences in January. Final effectiveness ratings are given on June 2nd, reported to the state, CDE, and on we go. Okay. This year also, our advisory performance evaluation council, which I'd be super happy if any of our board members would like to serve on that. It's an important committee. It helps drive what we're going to do with our evaluations. We're going to have to prepare for the major changes coming in on 23-24. So not this school year, but the next school year. Probably the biggest change, if you remember that very beginning slide where I had a piece of pie that was 50-50, it's going to change next year. Next year, the student growth and achievement is going to be worth 30%, not 50%. And the quality standards are going to be worth 70%, not 50%. So it's split up in that direction. So we don't, again, the question is, well, what is that going to look like? I don't know. That's the piece that CDE still hasn't put out some trainings and some understanding. So once we get that, our committee, Advisory Performance Evaluation Council, will meet and work on those things. All right. Questions?
I guess they're meeting once per quarter, or, well, you guys do it once per quarter, it has to meet through the school year and not during the summer.
Correct. We meet during the school year. And sometimes it's more than once a quarter. I don't want to scare anybody away. I would anticipate it's probably more than once per quarter this year based on the major changes that are coming up next year.
Who's on the council now?
Let's see, it's 2 principals. I think it's building administrators are on there. There are teachers on there. There's a community member on there. Parents are on there. It's also in the Council 1338. It's also legislative in terms of who should be on that council.
Okay. And so, what are the quality standards still? 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to go pull them off to see them. Like I said, we have 29 different categories. The example might be content and pedagogy knowledge, right? The ability to to have that, where that looks like. So I have to go and I can send you those online, I can send you those if you'd like.
Oh, did you say they're online?
Yeah.
Okay, on our website or like, are you talking about?
They're both on CDE and they're both on our website as well.
Okay. But there's 29 different categories and they're squeezed into the 4 different
Well, there's
standards?
like, so we might have one that's a certified classroom teacher, then we might have one that's similar. The rubric is similar, but it's a certified special education teacher, teacher librarian, learning coach, general certified. So there's a bunch of them that apply to everybody in the school district at some level. So everybody is attached to one of the rubrics. And they all have different number of standards. All of them have, most of them have different number of elements within the standards. So.
And then who does the conferences that are required?
The evaluator, so typically the principal or assistant principal, and the teacher or SSB, that's their conferences.
Okay. Is there any point at which like you and Ms. Cassins are involved in that, like at the end, or is it just like the principal reports to you guys?
So the principals would be on the same evaluation cycle. They would have these conferences with Ms. Cassins in charge of those things. And then during those conferences, likely the evaluation or the knowledge of what's happening with the staff is probably shared at that time with Ms. Cassins, as well as when we go into the building.
And I would say throughout the year, we consult with principals. So principals will say, this is going on. We also walk together. So Dell and I both go out and visit schools and we'll walk through classrooms together. So I know he listed one formal observation. Our principals and evaluators are in classrooms every week. So they do what we call walkthroughs. So just walking through classrooms and seeing what's going on. So we'll do walkthroughs together. It's been a few years since our whole admin team did walkthroughs together, but I know the whole team is really looking at that we'd like to do that again to norm our practice. So we will pick a building and the admin team will come and we'll just walk through and we'll give feedback to teachers, but really it's to talk with each other. What did you see? What did you notice? What would you have coached? What would you have, had accolades for? So we just worked as a PLC, like a professional learning community. We walk together and try to norm our practice. And also with the MSLs this year, we talked about having a buddy system where, like Cindy Gannon's like, here's my MSLs for my staff. And it might be that Katie's her buddy and she's going to read them all and be like, these look good. I don't know what this one meant. This doesn't seem rigorous enough. So someone that just puts another set of eyes on that. Because we spent some time already this year just looking at last year's teacher measures of student learning and just looking at, some were probably written better than others. And so how do we help hone that practice so that we have quality measures of student learning? Because a measure of student learning boils down to a number. So when you take a counseling practice and say it boils down to a number, so you got to have a goal, some kind of measure that's going to give you a number that you can compare. And so sometimes that, PE boils down to a number. Band boils down to a number. So sometimes it's a little easy. Math, they're like, we got it. We got numbers down. But sometimes, principles boils down to a measure that has a number attached to it.
When you say there's all these different categories that go into these different standards, which are then weighted differently, are we talking like a multi-page form with different boxes and everything like that? And is that, so?
The admin's like,
Well, so when we have that, the probationary staff have to have the 2 formal observations and post-observation conference. So that's documented on these forms and that's gone over with the teacher or the other certified staff that we're talking about?
That's correct. It actually lives in our platform dashboard systems. You might have heard from other schools, they use a system called Randa. We've heard Randa. It's the same platform that carries that information. We don't use Randa. Since the beginning, we've created our own. Same type of stuff, but all of that information is housed in our dashboard system.
And teachers have an opportunity to also write into that system. So there is an opportunity where when a principal at mid-year provides some feedback, a teacher can respond to that in writing into the system also. And so that's all officially held within that system.
Are there any other questions? Any other directors?
Well, I should ask, when is the Advisory Performance Evaluation Council next scheduled to meet, if it is scheduled?
It is not scheduled at this time because we have to get our numbers.
When are you hoping to meet? October?
Any other questions? I do have a couple that I would just like to know. These standards, these are state standards that are set for all public schools throughout Colorado?
Correct, at a minimum. So the standards can look different if we write our own, which we have in some places.
Say that one more time.
I'm sorry. They can look different if the local agency writes their own, which we have in a few cases. But you still have to be a minimum standard as defined by, it was Senate Bill 191.
Okay.
And those standards continue to morph and change, and next year I know they're adding a few different ones. And so it'll be interesting to see how many different employee have rubrics at the state level.
And that's the CDE that does that. We're talking about when you say they.
They being CDE. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the CDE sets this standard, that is the minimum standard that they're looking for? So I hear you saying a school can set much higher standards for their education. That answers my question. And you said that some of our own standards.
Correct.
So does this apply then, since we're comparing ourselves to all schools across the state, does this apply to, for instance, at a traditional public school? And I just say that to differentiate between our school and, let's say, a charter academy, something that's a chartered school. Does this apply to both licensed teachers and non-licensed teachers? The same evaluation?
No, it does not. It only applies to licensed, certified staff. We, as a district, have made a decision to incorporate our classified employees.
All of our educators. Okay. So my other question is, say we standard, what the minimum standards, we're meeting and exceeding our own standards of things. Is there any kind of, what is the incentive besides, excellence within yourself, wanting to always be better? I know that Mr. Owens, he is always educating himself, and I was really impressed with his class load this summer. I would hate to take his math classes, but so what incentive do teachers have to just, far outshining what even our schools' standards are?
But so I think there's a couple different things. One is incentive to be better and get more education that reflects in your pay, but not necessarily your potential for pay, but not necessarily as it reflects on the evaluation. The incentive on the evaluation is probably twofold. One is getting non-probationary or losing non-probationary status, or contributing to the greater good with all of your student learning and student outcomes so that our SPF has great scores.
So, for instance, somebody who takes all these math classes during the summer and they're amazing teachers, their kids are doing great scores. There is no incentive that they have that says, if I do this with my kids and all these things, there's no monetary incentive for, is that what I hear you saying?
Based on the evaluation, correct.
And there's a lot of research around that system doesn't always produce. It's even like with kids. What's the incentive? Like once you have the A, what's the incentive to keep learning? That external rewards, really we want internal rewards, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we want in life is the internal rewards of doing the job. I will tell you though, the rubrics we have, very few teachers max out on our rubrics. They're tough rubrics. So a lot of teachers are shooting for, and Nate's going, yes, a lot of teachers are shooting for that exemplary rating on the rubric. But I think a lot of our teachers it's just intrinsic to be better at their craft and to perform better.
Well, I think that that's good too, but a higher salary is always a great incentive, I would think, for a lot of people, not just that, because if you're in a craft or a job like education, seeing your kids do great is a great incentive. But being able to live in Woodland Park and Teller County costs a lot more than other places in the state. So incentive, I would think I wouldn't turn it down. Let me say that.
Yeah, Nate, teachers are very different from the students. I don't see another one of the teachers out there in other classes. So it's defining
Sure.
excellence and defining, as we've seen, you've seen some of those scores. Growth is different than achievement is different from, keeping kids happy and coming to school, attending school, or there are just we live in such a complex system that sometimes it's hard to define what that might look like.
I would think that if we can define it down to one number, we would be able to, also come up with a system of reward. Are there any traditional public schools that have the kind of reward for excellence that I'm describing, or in Colorado?
Yeah, I think I couldn't tell you how many or who they are, but I'm sure there are some that have a merit-based pay
And
system.
that's what it's called.
Okay.
What's ours called, like lanes and stairs or something?
Yeah, ours is unique because it's a combination of a cascading lanes and steps, as well as an individual owning of your own self. So it's a little bit a hybrid of sorts.
I can already see the next presentation forming in my mind.
Well, any other questions from any other director? You've given me lots of food for thought, and I really appreciate your presentation. It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
So, yes, yeah. So we have one more presentation, sir.
I know, this one's easy now.
Oh, you don't have to stand up there?
I'll let you stand up there for that one. Just wanted to give an enrollment update of where we were. You can see in your packets, there is as of, this was September 9th, so was that last Friday. You can kind of see where our enrollment is at each school. I can tell you that currently, based on what was projected, let's see, Columbine, got to make sure I have it right. Columbine is about 3 short right now of what was projected, 3 students. Gateway is above, so Gateway is about 13 above projections. Summit Elementary is just 2 below projections. Woodland Park Middle School is about 10 below projections, and the high school is about currently 42 above projections. Above. So all in total, we're about 13 students above or somewhere in that neighborhood. I will caution you that between now and October count, we could go way up, we can stay where we are, or we can go down. Between now and October count, there's a lot of fluidity in student numbers, but that's our head count as of Friday.
Now, October count, that's like a particular day, right?
Correct.
Count day?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting little formula. So October 3rd this year, because the 1st is on a weekend. So October 3rd on a Monday is count day. And so what the state does is they take the attendance on that Monday And if a student's not there, what they look for, if we want to count the kid, is did they attend your school in the 5 days before that day? And did they attend your school in the 5 days after that day?
So kid who's out sick.
Yeah. So, and it's way more complicated than that, but because there are all sorts of like, what if they moved in, and what if there's a manual that's about this big that talks about how to do October count. So we'll start doing that. I think it's next week. We'll start talking about that. So, but essentially they look at that one day and then they look to 5 days on either side of it if a student is not there on that day.
And that's kind of what locks in our official enrollment, which connects to the funding that we get from the state.
Yes, sir.
So is count day like a regular school day, or are we just giving away ice cream cones and showing movies to get everybody in, or what?
I think it's pajama day. Is that usually what it is? There's usually fun stuff going on in the school.
Raffle to win a $50 Amazon
You
card.
can't incentivize to come. That's against the state law.
To wear your pajamas, though.
Yes, that's just a fun day. We're just having a fun day.
I like the ice cream idea.
Yeah, I think we've had some treats at schools on count day.
But no raffles.
Yeah, I think we did do a raffle once, and then the state came out and talked about that you can't do that.
Well, just,
Yeah.
I do have a question. Well, does anybody else have any questions? Any other directors?
Can you answer for me what placed outside the building refers to specifically?
Can you say that again, Chris?
There's a category here, a column that says placed outside the building.
You got it?
The portable?
No, this would be your online.
No, placed outside the building are students that we have contracts with downtown
Yes.
for specialized programs
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry,
Thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you.
or somewhere else around the
Or
state
somewhere else.
facilities.
Are those necessarily special needs students?
It could be special needs. Sometimes it could be juvenile detention centers.
Any other questions from other directors?
Yes, Katie, maybe you can answer this question. Is it, you have more online students? Is it because of the remote location? Or do you offer something different?
So we actually had all the online students funnel into one location, so that way they'd have a connection to the school. Since Summit already had an established Enrichment Academy program, we already had families that were choosing to do homeschool or online and then connecting to the school on Wednesdays. So it made sense to kind of make the online hub Summit. So that way if a family, like, here's where you come to pick up your online curriculum, here's where you come to connect with a teacher if you're struggling with some of your curricular needs, because we found students perform better in an online school when they're connected to a school and a grown-up. So you would see more at Summit because that's where it's housed.
Then how does that incorporate the 4 from Columbine?
So we're still kind of figuring that piece out because we have EA students, that's a new program that's starting up at Columbine, and we're working to go, how do we best support those students? Ms. Pelagi, she oversees the online program at the elementary level, and so she's still overseeing all of it. Those students the question is, are they online and attending the EA program at Columbine, or are they online just in the Columbine bound? So typically what we've seen is those are the online students that are connected through EA as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I just have one, just for clarification. We have 2 different totals here for the in-person and actual current enrollment. What, can you tell me what those?
Yeah, so if you just look on the in-person, that's your, and you add that to what our EA online is, that gets you your
Okay.
total actual
The
enrollment.
EA. What is EA stand for?
Enrichment.
Academy.
Enrichment.
So this is our homeschool kids. So
Okay.
kids that do primarily their education at home, they can come in for 1 day a week and we do Music, art,
Okay.
PE, science.
So it's homeschool kids mostly, all right.
But if you add those three across the bottom, they should total that
I got it, yeah.
1793.
Any other questions? Do you have any other presentations for us?
Not till.
Do you have any you
not
would
till
like to
November.
have for us? Thank you. Okay, yes, thank you very much. Okay, next. How'd you miss all these presentations?
I was last month, remember?
No, I was far away. Okay, reports, updates. We have our very own Mr. Nate Owen. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. Del, I'm hearing you say I should not be giving math tests on October updates. Is that what
I'd say just teach your kids.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Extra tests on those.
That's right.
No, I'm just kidding. They happen to, the math tests happen to fall where they fall. So we assess our students when the students are ready to be assessed. Good evening, Board of Directors. Good evening, interim superintendents. I'm here to just give you a little bit of a report. So thank you for having me this evening. I'm going to take some time to highlight some of our schools, some of our teachers that are doing some awesome things in our school district. You've already heard from Mrs. Rexford and some of the things out at Summit Elementary, but I will definitely continue to emphasize some things. So I've actually reached out to some of our teachers in the district that are well across the district. They have told me some of the great things. So I would like to share some of those great things that our teachers in our district is actually doing. So you'll hear this from the teacher perspective, not necessarily from administration perspective. Today at Summit Elementary, sorry, is that the correct pronunciation? Because I've only heard you say.
It depends on who you talk to.
It's okay. Today was Harvest Lunch Day at Summit Elementary. The students there got to eat some of the fruits of their labor. Last May, they enjoyed planting in their Summit gardens and really enjoyed planting the seeds and learning and using some of their knowledge from their E3 curriculum. And they were super excited. They got to eat some of their fruits and vegetables from the garden that the students actually planted. I was super excited to hear that they were continuing with that. Both the staff and the students are super excited to hear about the Summit Studios where they can personalize their learning. Some of the things that they're going to be doing are stop percussion class. They're going to be working in the Messy Makers Makerspace. They're going to be enjoying some acting studio classes where they can learn some improv skills and some method acting classes. And one of the PE elective classes is where they're going to be doing some jump rope instruction, both individually and as a group. Hopefully you guys remember some double Dutch, and they might be looking for some instructors, Del, if you are interested.
I paid money for that.
At Columbine Elementary, they're getting their master's classes up and off the ground. They have a strong tradition of offering these classes throughout the school year to every single one of their students. The master classes are offered by both the staff and the community members. I know I've talked with some of our HD Aero interns that have done some rocketry in the past, but the current classes that are offered, and this is just a sampling, is they have a junior mathematicians class, a mindfulness matters class, bugs everywhere, and junior ornithologists. Is Ginger here to correct me on the pronunciation on that? Junior ornithologists. Ornithology is the study of birds, if you wanted to know about that. Next week, they even have a special guest coming to talk to their students. This special guest is a author named Dion Leonard. Wrote the story called Finding Gobi, which is inspired by his dog. It's an interesting story about a ethnically Chinese person that runs ultra marathons with the dog. From the high school, I know that personally I've talked with several of our students that are new to our district. One of our 42 students, one of our new 42 students at the high school, I've been in contact with his parents, And he shared, or the parents actually shared with me, and that's how I know about this, that the student is really enjoying our Woodland Park High School. A lot of the excitement and challenges about the math class. And the parents have reached out to me and said, wow, I'm really excited. My student is enjoying being in your class, has really enjoyed being a part of the culture of Woodland Park High School. So figured I'd share that with you guys as well. Next, I'd like to highlight a little bit more with the high school. We've got homecoming next week. You heard at the very beginning about how we have a lot of traditions around the homecoming week, and this year is no exception. We have a lot of community building opportunities this year. The student council is excited and would like to share and invite you guys to come to the parade, the bonfire, and our homecoming football game. And those are definitely community events that we are hosting. The staff from the district have been volunteering and been working extra hard to put on the parade and bonfire this year, as the City of Woodland Park and the Woodland Park Police Department do not have the staffing to help with the barricades. We've gotten several emails from Mrs. Eastman that ask for volunteers to help with the barricades. I can successfully report that we have the staff for that currently, but Mrs. Eastman would always welcome more volunteers to help out with the homecoming dance, to help out with the parade cleanup. So we're always looking for volunteers, and we'd ask that you guys, well, maybe not necessarily you guys, but as a community, so I'll speak to the community and our board, join us in celebrating our homecoming this year. If you need to reach out, you can talk to me after the meeting. I can give you the contact information for that. During homecoming week, each of the schools are also participating in our Spirit Week. This year's theme is Welcome to the Jungle. We'll have a lot of Spirit Days every day next week, and it'll be culminating with the Wear Your Woodland Park Spirit Day Pride. We are going to be celebrating by wearing our jerseys that represent your team. So make sure go green and white, because Woodland Park will fight. Right. Anyways, yes, no, all right. Sorry, I'm trying to incorporate my inner cheerleader here. So green and white, let's fight. But we've got that homecoming football game next week, 7 p.m. I'm going to invite you guys personally and our community. Make sure you come out to our homecoming football game. It is an exciting opportunity, exciting community tradition that we have. The high school and the middle school bands are definitely going to be engaging the crowds from the stands during that football game. They've put on a collaborative effort to make sure that they can welcome the community and each other to the football game. Anyways, I'm trying to say our staff and our students have put on a lot of hard work. They've put a lot of what's the right word for this? A lot of gumph and emphasis into making this the most successful event that we have ever seen. I know that I've talked with several of our students that are very excited. I've talked to several of our staff that are very excited, and we are going to be putting on the best homecoming on record. We look forward to seeing both our board of directors, our co-interim superintendents in our community at several of the events throughout the week next week. So I just figured I'd share that. It's really an exciting time every year for this. So that is all I have to share from the updates from some of the schools and from our teachers.
Does any directors have any comments or anything?
So if you want to volunteer for like cleanup or something like that, it's Miss Eastman that
Yes,
you need to
Mrs.
contact.
Eastman is our student council
You could also
sponsor.
talk to Michael.
Hello.
Michael,
Michael,
if you guys want to help with cleanup or with pickup, definitely talk to me. I could use.
Michael can definitely help you with that. Mrs. Eastman is also our student council sponsor, and she is organizing the activities. So if you'd like to get in touch with her, she is definitely somebody that would accept the volunteerism. And same with Michael.
And do we have anything like on our website or our Facebook or other social medias also letting people know where they can sign up if they'd like to volunteer and things like that?
I see nods from the back.
Dave, I actually signed up for that, so I saw it on Facebook. So yeah, I mean, if they're getting it out, people are seeing it, and I'll volunteer now for that.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I have a comment and a question.
Yes.
My comment is, thank you for bringing all this positive, good-spirited, positive energy stuff. I just love to see our school pulling together because we are better together. And I have a question for Kelly. If all of the directors come to the parade and to the football game, do we need to announce that as?
What I can do is just post it, that it's an event that you guys are invited to, and then that way it's covered if all 5 of you or more than 2 of you show up at the same place.
Okay.
I'll get those posted.
All right. Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Owen.
Thank you, Nate.
Next, we have an update from our charter school. This Dr. Gwen Peckron.
Thank you for having me. We appreciate it. We like seeing you and everyone around, and it's kind of fun sitting in the back now, and it just feels good. Like I said, I'm getting used to this, being on this side of things. So I'm just going to dive right in for our highlights. I kind of forget where we started because so much has happened, and I realized, oh, you actually didn't hear how the school year has started and how things are going with us. And so we'll kind of start there. Our first day was exceptional. I think it probably was for everyone. We had a tremendous showing for our students and families. We always open it up with, it's kind of always being year 2, open it up with a celebration, and it was really pleasant. We have what's called house buddies in our house, which I'll talk about in a bit. And a lot of these students hadn't seen each other over summer. And so we have our freshmen and 8th graders who are getting bombarded by our 1st graders and 2nd graders because they hadn't seen each other over summer, and they were very excited to see their buddies. And I'll talk a little bit about how that all plays out too. After the first day and students really started to get into things, I will tell you that probably the most excited thing about school starting this year in the new facility are lockers. Lockers pretty much put a smile on everybody's face, and when they got their locker combination, it was really kind of funny to see them all attempting to open lockers and not very successfully at first, and there was a lot of help initially, and now they're pros and they have everything decorated. So that was very exciting for them. Small, but big deal for them. The facility has been fantastic. Your staff is incredible. It's not anything like, what the worst case scenarios aren't anywhere near what we're experiencing. In fact, it's all the best positive things that you can imagine. So it's been very cordial. It's been very friendly. It's neighborly, and it's great. And we really appreciate everything that you guys are doing to help us with that as well. Friday, we had our 26th, we had our house day, which is a big day. That's our sorting day. So we sorted over 100 new students, including some of our new homeschoolers, and they get to find which house they're in. And we have 5 different houses. Think British house system, very much like Harry Potter, but not. And so we have our elk house, wolf house, falcon, bobcat, and bighorn, and they all have different colors. So they have a magic globe that flashes the color, and that's the house they're going to be in. So they see purple and they get very excited that they're in bighorn, and everybody goes crazy. And then the little kids with their eyes are really big run over to the bighorn house. And so that was our house sorting day, and it was really fun. And Cassie, thank you for coming, Mother Mushroom.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
We appreciate that. Absolutely. Yes. And so I'm Mama Bear, she's Mother Mushroom. And then all of our founding board members are each, like Old Elk and Mama Falcon. And so
I was named there. I was invited to come to see what the sorting process was because I was asking questions and didn't really understand it, but how she explained it, there's this globe and then they're sort of like changing it, there's a
no, it's magic.
Magic is magic. You don't want to release the magic, but Anyways, the kids come up and then they get like a wristband and then they sort off. So it was interesting and like all the boards, so I sat and watched, but they introduced me as
Other mushrooms.
well, they're mushrooms.
Now you have to tell, the thing is, Cassie and her husband collect mushrooms.
We don't collect, we forage
All right,
and we
they-
eat and dry them and you know, for steaks and soups.
So I show her pictures of all those odd mushrooms growing around our house, in our pasture.
So yeah, that's true.
So anyway,
So we also have competitions throughout the year for our House Cup. The Bobcat House was very proud to hold that House Cup and see their name engraved on it. They won that last year. Our first actual house day for house competition is this Friday. It is a quarterly event, so it doesn't take up, it doesn't slam out our academics and enhancement time. But it is really fun to see all the kids get together. And because one of the key things for our houses is that vertical integration, so K through 9. And they have their buddy systems and competitions oftentimes connect the two together. And so that way our freshmen are helping our kindergartners and so forth. And it's actually really cool to watch. So our first house day is this Friday afternoon. Also, we have our vertical integration going, which is one of our key components to our school. So our freshman level German students are working with our 6th graders, giving them some tutoring on their German classes. And our 7th and 8th graders are working with our kindergarten and 1st graders and getting them set up in their typing program, which is really kind of fun to watch a kindergartner learn to type. But we figured that's a good skill for them to start with. So let's see, we were kind of asked to highlight 1 or 2 programs because everything's so new. I think like with what you were saying, Katie, there are so many good things going on in these buildings and in these schools. It's really hard to hone in on one, but I think we've got a couple, and then you had asked for a CAP update. So we're going to go with that too. We're going to highlight a science program. Our teacher, Mr. Tim Lunt, is our science teacher. He's been teaching science for over 30 years. Last year, he took our upper grades, which last year was 6 through 8, and they got their hunter safety certifications. And they also learned how to ice fish. And then not only were they ice fishing, but they were also doing the environmental science piece to it. So the measuring, the analysis, pretty much everything that you look for. But the joyful thing was they're on ice and it was cold. So they were into it and they were ready to go home whenever they came. So they caught a lot of fish. And then what they did was they dissected them and ate them. And it was great. So we're going to continue on with that. He received a grant. The other really cool things he has is right now we have 6 skeletons. Deer, elk, antelope, coyote. I think there's a couple, did I say antelope? We have a few. And we just got another one, a cow elk. And so what he does is he boils them down, cleans them up, gets them all covered and painted and everything, health up to health code. And he has them welded together. And then the students learn the animal, they learn the environment that the animal lives in, the habitats, the activities, and then they take the skeleton apart and then they have to put it together. And so they need to know where the body parts, the bones and so forth come from. So he has a grant, and so we got another skeleton. It was actually a hunt find on a private land and donated. So he's gonna clean that up and get it ready for the kids, and we're gonna have another one. So we'll have 7 skeletons rolling. And so all of that relates back to the park, our Rocky Mountain version of what we call Rocky Mountain version classical education, studying the environment and appreciating the world that we live in, because it is beautiful up here. And we want our kids to be very grateful and understanding of the world that they live in as well. The other outdoor piece that we have rolling as far as the class goes right now is our survival ed. And so they're learning solar tents and fire and anything you can imagine. It's if you're stuck outside and you try to climb a 14er and you get lost, what do you have and how do you survive it? So they meet on Fridays and they work through with that. And I think that's going to be a semester because I really don't see how they can do that in January, but wheels are turning. Our CAP update, we have 38 cadets with our Civil Air Patrol program. They have a squadron meeting at the Colorado Springs Air Show coming up. They also have their next CAP flight outing. I can't remember the exact terminology, in I believe 2 weekends. And so some of these cadets will be up in the air doing their flight time and with someone else. And so they're working through that. All of our, they just completed their ethics class. My son is a 6th grader, so he's one of the first year cadets. And it's really cool for him because he now has freshmen and 8th graders who are teaching him the typical trends and traditions. And so he's picking it up faster than last year's class did, because last year they had very little modeling besides the adults. Now they get to see a line of kids who did it last year, and they understand how to salute and they understand all of that wonderful stuff. All of our cadets have been outfitted with their uniforms without cost to families. Thanks to donations, we had Peterson Space Force Air Force Attic had a number of uniforms that they donated. So that was very helpful for us and our families. We were chartered last school year, but we actually now get to have our official chartering ceremony, and that will take place with a 3-star Lieutenant General guest speaker on October 7th. And also our CAP squadron was asked to help with the parade and the bonfire. So we're grateful that we're starting to see that branch out into the community. I think they also helped with our Vietnam Wall, the memorial behind the middle school, and they did something else. I can't remember, but they're starting to get calls from the community, and it's really nice to see these young men and women step up and just, I mean, if you see them, you kind of, your heart pitter patters when you see them because they're just so respectful and they look good in their uniforms, and it just helps. We just finished map testing, and so we shall have the results of that shortly. Our staff will use that, of course, with placement, improvements, who needs what type of supports where, all of the things that you typically find in a school with assessments like this. And so our beginning of year assessments have just completed for that. Let's see. And then the next thing we have is enrollment, and I have that up there as well. So we have our initial enrollment numbers, and as Mr. Garrick said, they might fluctuate a bit. Being a smaller school, I don't know that they would fluctuate as much as they might for the district. Incoming or outgoing, we have heard there might be a family coming in, and we've heard there might be a family moving to Texas. So we keep those things on the radar. So as of right now, this is what our numbers look like. So last year, our opening year, we had K through 5, we had 117 students, and this year we have 175. And our upper school last year, we had 67 full-time students, 6 through 8, and this year we have 93. So for full-time, last year we had 184, and this year we have 268. Last year we began K through 8, 1 class per grade. This year we expanded K through 3 to add another class. We purposely stopped there just because it's a phase-in process. And so, and we added freshmen this year. We also saw a change in our homeschool enrichment class. Last year, we had 24 students in our homeschool program, and this year we have 30. And then we have a partnership with Falcon Aerolab, which is an aerospace Aerolab homeschool program. And last year they had 65 students, and then they realized that was a lot for first year up here, and it was very difficult to find staffing. So what they did in the summer was they cut the K-3 program they had, and they went 5 through 12, and they capped it at 32. And so that number is decreased from last year. It's at 30 now, capped at 32, and last year it was at 65. So we adjusted accordingly, but it's not too much of a hit for us because most of our funding that we get for those students goes into the Aerolab program. So total students that Merit Academy has is 328 this year so far, give or take.
Thank you,
That's
Gwen.
my report to you.
Do we have any questions from the directors?
All right, I gotta ask about the lockers. which grades are getting the lockers?
Everyone. So what we have for K through 4 is we took the locks off. So we took the locks off, we put them in a bag, we numbered them with the locker, and we numbered them with the locker combination. And those are all in a secure place. So the littles don't have actual locks. They just can open it, put their backpacks, their bags in there. And then the older kids have the lockers. You know, what's really funny, and I hate to put these people on the spot, I won't say names. They're from out of country, and they were trying to open the lockers, and this is a freshman, and he's banging his head against the wall, and the mom's like, what is it with these American lockers? And I said, you just, turn this way, turn that way. She says, why don't you just press buttons or have a key? And I said, this was built in 1993. And she said, oh, so it was funny to see the difference of locker knowledge. But it, like I said, it was kind of the moment of the first week is the locker use.
So the littles get all the excitement of the locker without the stress that we all went through in middle
Exactly.
school of that.
No dreams.
It's not gonna open.
Right. They don't have any of those dream issues yet.
So I met a student this week, or 2 weeks ago in town, and she had numbers written on her arm with arrows going one way and the other. What is that? She goes, I'm going to Merritt and I don't know how to do my locker yet. So it's actually a thing. But I think she's past that now.
Yeah, we had to have signs about this is how you open a locker, and it was just fun. It was awesome. They didn't want it their schedules. They didn't care. They wanted their locker and their locker combination. That's what they kept asking for.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Peckron. That was great. Thank you. All right, now we are on to, you are all waiting for this, I know, our superintendent reports.
I'm just gonna continue the theme that was started
We
by
finally
Nate.
get to participate in the meeting.
Thank you. Continuing with just some highlights, I thought I'd highlight some of our themes that we're working towards. So the first one was the Better Together, and Nate stole some of my thunder, but no. So Better Together, so just highlighting last Friday night was the staff barbecue and home football game. So we served 217 staff and family members before the game. We did have a lightning delay, so some didn't always stay, and then we had a running clock by the very start of the second quarter, because we were already ahead by 40 points. So that was a great activity. We had a little contest. It's like, come on. Little contest going on to see which staff had the greatest representation. It was a percentage based on staff. It was a close run between Gateway and the middle school. The middle school snuck it out there. Yeah.
Stephanie Roman walked in at the last minute.
That's what made it. Talking about the harvest, so that again, some of the parents, staff, and students that pulled in their harvest and had their harvest lunch that happened today. And then I thought this was a nice little, I included some pictures, sorry you can't see them in the audience. Ms. Miller's kindergarten classroom is highlighting, so they have a program called The Leader in Me. So it's building those leadership qualities. And so each day they're highlighting a couple students, picking a popsicle stick, and they get to highlight the student and talk about their genius, and they create a genius poster. And the student shares their strengths and contributions to the class. And then the class adds on to that to talk about what additional strengths and contributions that student makes. And then they put their posters up on the wall and count up how many superpowers they have as a class. So each day they count up and they're keeping a running total. They must be in the hundreds.
They have quite a few.
Yes.
Love it.
And then they talk about how, when they put their superpowers together, how they're better as a team. And when they work together, they have more power. So what a great theme in our kindergarten classes. But it's a theme throughout, with Leader in Me throughout. So looking at another area that we're working on is just fostering stakeholder voice. Oh, did you forget to pass this?
Well, I didn't know that there.
Looking at
I need
stakeholder
further
voice.
instruction.
One of our goals was to really foster stakeholder voice. Dell and I will be taking the show on the road. So we've included some networking events. So we've added some, and we purposely chose the word networking Because we really like the idea that when you're networking, you're working together. So you're finding ways that you can both become better by working to the strengths, kind of like our kindergarten class. So we have set dates and sent out invitations. Our pastors, our realtors, we've set the date for our senior citizen brunch. We decided we've done that in the spring, and we talked to them about all the things they can come see at our school, and then we're done. And so we're like, we should do that in the fall so that we can talk about all the fun things they can see and they have the rest of the year. So we've moved that up. We have our Veterans Day Assembly coming up. We are inviting healthcare and first responders, business leaders, and retired Woodland Park staff. And so our goal is to really meet with them, give them a little kind of state of the union, but gather their feedback, listen to their concerns, and connect and network together. So those are all coming up here starting at the end of September. All of our board members received invites. Kelly's will post those as meetings. So we invite you to join us if you're available. They're 9 to 10:30. If you can join us for those events, she sent some invites. We are also going to do what we're calling school listening tours. So we're going to be heading out to all five schools. We're going to meet with students. So we have a plan to do some lunch gatherings with our students and gather input from them. We're going to meet with our staff. So we'll be available to meet with staff. Usually we pick a day and we'll say, we're here, sign up and come see us. And just opportunities to have conversations. And then same with our parents. We're going to target our parent organizations. So kind of PTO, CAP, boosters clubs, and really just get some information, introduce ourselves, and just get feedback from them and figure out how we all work together and really foster that voice. And then finally, I had just some celebrations. So 2 celebrations that we typically have in the school, both fell on weekends this year. So 9/11 Patriot Day, not Patriots Day, but Patriot Day. And then coming up this weekend is Constitution Citizenship Day. So our elementaries have been engaged in the American Legion flag ceremonies. So if you've not been able to join those, we have one more tomorrow at 8:45. You will see our entire administrative team at Gateway for the flag ceremony with our Better Together shirts, as a reminder, with our Better Together shirts. So our whole team is attending that last one together. At the middle school, you see a potpourri of things that they've been doing to celebrate those 2 days. You will see, I believe it's our 6th graders, and I have some capitalization that I didn't put in there. You'll see our 6th graders coming to do sign language, I believe, for the Pledge of Allegiance coming up here at our next board meeting. You'll see some things, our 8th graders kicking off. They're about to study U.S. history and the Constitution. So they've been looking at the preamble to the Constitution, and then just some thanks that went out in newsletters honoring our military and first responders. And then our high school, this Friday, we'll be having a Constitution Day virtual guest speaker. It's an assembly for all civic students. It was organized by the Bill of Rights Institute, and it's a pairing with the Federalist Society. So they have identified attorneys that specialize in Constitution law, and they will be presenting. There's actually 300 attorneys that were identified by the Federalist Society to sponsor this Constitution Day assembly. So we've been assigned one of those attorneys, and actually it will be virtual, but we'll be joining with all of our civic students to hear that presentation by that attorney.
That's great.
So yeah, so they're pretty excited. And then finally, welcome to the jungle. So homecoming, we invite you to join us next week as the theme came as we play the Lions. So we have the Panthers against the Lions, thus welcome to the jungle. So I did include the days that the students picked for Spirit Days if you'd like to join in. We have Jungle Safari Day. So I know the high school and most staff plan to dress as Panthers. I believe there are special ears that Ms. Gannon has bought for all staff. We have Tuesday Soccer Mom and Barbecue Dad Day. I hear there might be some lawn chairs brought and
barbecuing dad.
Yep, barbecuing dad. We have Dress Your Type Day, which we are all like, what is that? I guess for the students, it's the type of student, the type of person that you would like to hang out with, you get to dress as. For the staff, am I giving this away? It's a special pun. They are dressing in white and wearing things that tell Helvetica 12, their font, so their type day.
Oh,
Yeah, that's cool. Thursday is Adam Sandler Day, high school kids. And Friday is Jersey Day. So I did include here the parade on Wednesday at 6 p.m. running down Highway 24 to the bonfire. If you've not been to the bonfire, if you have not experienced a bonfire until you've been to the Woodland Park bonfire, it is quite a bonfire typically, very large. So that's a great activity. Friday is the football game at 7 p.m. versus the Colorado Springs Christian School Lions. I am hearing word, and Nate alluded to a little to that. Our 50-person marching band, which if you've not seen them on the field, it's impressive. Probably triple the size it was 3 years ago. So 50 kids, but they have recruited our middle school students to join them in the stands and in the parade. I'm hearing word of up to 95 students that will be marching with that band.
Wonderful.
So accolades to Mr. Jeff Hemmingson for really bolstering that program at the high school. So, and then the dance is on Saturday from 8 to 10. So, any questions?
Where is the bonfire at? So you start the parade at 6 p.m. and where is the bonfire going
You
to be?
head to the middle school. It's, I can't miss it.
Can't miss it. So at the middle school.
In the fields, above the middle school football field.
So how long, so that starts at the same time as the game? When?
No, Wednesday is the bonfire.
Oh, Wednesday's bonfire.
Yep. And Friday's the game.
Got it. Any other questions?
Tina, what do you attribute to this remarkable growth in our marching band?
The enthusiasm of Mr. Jeff Hemmingson.
He is
A graduate of Woodland Park High School.
Yes.
And collaboration, so going back to our first theme, Better Together, he and Kayla Garcia have come together and are building an amazing program.
The high school band came down today and played with our band, the marching band, and they played together. It was amazing.
And they're coming down tomorrow again.
But it was like they were better together.
And last year, the marching band was a warm welcome Wednesday at the middle school.
Oh,
So-
they're competing.
Are they coming in? So they played as students were coming into the school. So it built a lot of excitement for being a part of the marching band. And they look, if you've seen them in their uniforms, they look really nice out there. I think kids want to be a part of that.
Del, were you in the marching band when you were here?
I was not, no. I was first chair in the trombone section. Only one chair. So.
Can you make that sad trombone noise?
A long time ago, perhaps.
All right. Del, do you have anything? All right. Well, go ahead.
This is tangential. Miles, is the middle school the music room or back in there yet? What's happening? That's your Widowmaker, right?
We're waiting on cabinetry from Winger. That's kind of the last step.
Okay.
But we hear it will be amazing. And it's worth waiting for.
It better be.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. All right, on to directors. Any comments from our directors? Any reports?
I don't have a report, but I'm really, really excited because the board members know that I want, and Dell and Tina know that I want to start a junior ROTC at this school. And now I know I have one parent because I told Commissioner Williams. So I won't rest until we get a junior ROTC in our school.
Great idea.
That's it.
Woo! Yeah, go Army.
That's all I got.
Anyone else?
Oh, I'm just really looking forward to homecoming again, because it is a homecoming for so many. And I was just reminiscing, like, homecoming is aptly named, of course, because we're welcoming back alumni. And so to the alum of Woodland Park School District, welcome this next week. And have always felt welcome as alum here in Woodland Park. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I'm good.
You gonna be in the marching band?
No.
Anybody else? Cassie?
Yeah, today, David Restorables and I were able to make it to the flags for schools, and so we were there at Summit. I didn't get to talk to you, but Mrs. Katie Rutherford, not only does she bring in the Better Together at the end, as she like cheers on the students and they're all excited, but I don't remember the last phrase she did with the sign language, and so it was proud. Do you remember?
I repeated it back when you said it, and I thought that was really good. I even said something to Dan Williams.
The announcements tomorrow. No, so I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow as well, so. But it was really good just to see you and see all the kids, and we really appreciated it, and it was a lot of fun. So especially it was a little cold this morning, so thank you.
And it's respectful, purposeful, proud. And those are our three expectations.
Respectful, purposeful, and proud.
Wow, I loved it.
Good, because it's on shirts already, so.
We approve, it's good.
That was really good. Yeah, I enjoyed the ceremony this morning, and really thankful to the veterans who put on that. It was so good to see the kids all out there gathered around, and if that didn't give you goosebumps or chills, there's something wrong with you. So that was very, very good. And I love your energy and interaction with your kids. You do an amazing job at that. So thank you. So I also want to say the ROTC program, Commissioner Williams and I were also talking about that, about how do we get that going? And one of my granddaughters, she's in Pennsylvania, and she's getting into it. She's a homeschooler, but with the Boyertown School District, she's getting into that, and she's very excited about it. So hoping for one of those big scholarships that comes through. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We really are better together. I just love the feeling here tonight, and thank you for all your participation, your investment into our kids. So I also want to acknowledge and thank one of our securities, student resource people, Michael Terry. We just met tonight. Thank you for your service and your being here at the school. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else that I'm forgetting? Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Kelly.
Austin.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrough.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Resterholz.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned, and thank you so much.
That was the last one.